transcends generations. Enter the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, a duo that didn't just wrestle, they demolished. Known for their blend of brute strength, technical prowess, and an unparalleled love for suplexes, they weren't just another tag team. They were wrestling's equivalent of a high-speed train crashing into a brick wall, equal parts unstoppable force and immovable object. Hailing from Michigan, Rick and Scott weren't just two tough guys thrown together in a tag team. They were real-life brothers, collegiate wrestling standouts, and two of the most dominant performers. That insane blend of power and agility, the Steiners redefined tag team wrestling in ways few others could. From the NWA and WCW to Japan and the WWF, they suplexed, slammed, and bulldozed their way through some of the best teams in history, leaving a legacy filled with championships, broken opponents, and more than a few bewildered commentators trying to describe Scott's Frankensteiners. But their journey wasn't just about dominance, it was about evolving with the ever-changing wrestling landscape. From their humble beginnings to their wild, unpredictable later years, the Steiner brothers were never boring, always dangerous, and undeniably one of the most influential tag teams ever to step foot inside the squared circle. So, grab your earguards and tighten your singlets. We're diving headfirst into the suplex-filled saga of Rick and Scott Steiner. Before they were feared worldwide, Rick and Scott Steiner were just two kids from Bay City, Michigan, with a love for amateur wrestling. Rick, the older of the two, made a name for himself as a powerhouse grappler at the University of Michigan, where he became an NCAA Division I All-American. His younger brother, Scott, followed suit, achieving similar success and quickly developing a reputation for his freakish athleticism and explosive power. It was only natural that their amateur backgrounds would translate seamlessly into professional wrestling. Rick Steiner entered the world of professional wrestling first, debuting in the early 1980s. With his distinctive amateur wrestling gear, signature headgear, and unorthodox yet effective brawling style, he quickly found himself in the mix with some of the NWA's biggest names. By the late 80s, he had already held the NWA Television Championship and was carving out a niche as a lovable yet unpredictable competitor. Scott, on the other hand, was the new breed. Debuting a few years after Rick, he showcased a mix of raw power, technical precision, and aerial prowess that was almost unheard of for a man of his size. His combination of brute force and freakish agility made him a once-in-a-lifetime talent. When the two finally joined forces in 1989 under the NWA banner, it was as if two wrestling styles had merged to create the ultimate tag team machine. The Steiner brothers wasted no time making an impact. Almost immediately, they were thrown into the deep end against some of the most formidable teams in the business. Teams like the Road Warriors, Doom, and the Fabulous Freebirds. But unlike most rookie duos, the Steiners didn't just survive, they thrived. With Rick's hard-hitting offense and Scott's mind-blowing moves, most notably the Frankensteiner, a Hurricane Rana performed with the force of a missile, their rise to the top was inevitable. In 1990, they won the NWA World Tag Team Championship, proving they weren't just another set of muscle-bound brothers, but legitimate top-tier competitors. Their chemistry was unmatched, their intensity was off the charts, and their willingness to put their bodies on the line made them instant fan favorites. The Steiners were a unique blend of amateur wrestling mastery and explosive, no-holds-barred action, making them one of the most exciting acts in WCW. But their influence extended beyond just championship gold. The way they incorporated collegiate wrestling techniques into professional wrestling was revolutionary. Before the Steiners, amateur-style suplexes were seen as occasional power moves rather than foundational elements of an offense. They changed that, proving that a high-impact suplex could be just as devastating as a traditional finisher. Their technical precision inspired a generation of wrestlers who sought to blend raw athleticism with professional wrestling spectacle. Additionally, their ability to seamlessly transition in particular was redefining what it meant to be a heavyweight. His Frankensteiners and high-risk maneuvers were things that fans had rarely, if ever, seen from a man his size. The Steiners helped to break the mold of what tag team wrestling could be, showing that teams could be both powerful and technically proficient without relying on tired, formulaic structures. Their influence in Japan was another key part of their legacy. Competing in New Japan Pro Wrestling, the Steiner brothers left an imprint on the Japanese wrestling scene, where their hard-hitting style was greatly respected. The Japanese strong-style approach blended seamlessly with the Steiners' no-nonsense offense, and their battles with teams like Hiroshi Hase and Kensuke Sasaki set a new standard for international tag team wrestling. The intensity and realism they brought to their matches in Japan helped pave the way for future collaborations between American and Japanese wrestlers, demonstrating how different styles could coexist in the wrestling world. The Steiner brothers were also responsible for bringing a level of unpredictability to tag team wrestling. Their matches never felt scripted or overly choreographed. They carried an aura of danger. Any given night, Scott could decide to throw in a new variation of a suplex, or Rick might just decide to maul someone with his brute strength. This sense of unpredictability made them must-watch television and gave their matches an organic, competitive feel that resonated with hardcore wrestling fans. Perhaps most importantly, the Steiner brothers legitimized tag team wrestling in an era when single stars were often prioritized over tag teams. They weren't just supporting players, they were main event caliber athletes who could steal the show any night of the week. Their ability to draw crowds, excite audiences, and keep fans on the edge of their seats ensured that tag team wrestling remained a vital part of WCW's programming. Their run in WCW, combined with their success abroad, established them as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Their impact is still felt today, as modern tag teams borrow from their fast-paced, hard-hitting style. Whether it was their dominance in the United States or their pioneering work in Japan, the Steiner brothers proved that tag team wrestling could be just as thrilling, if not more so, than any singles competition. In 1992, Vince McMahon came calling and the Steiner brothers made their way to the World Wrestling Federation. But unlike many WCW imports, they didn't get lost in the shuffle. They bulldozed their way through the competition. Facing off against teams like Money Inc. and the Head Shrinkers, Rick and Scott continued to prove why they were among the best in the world. The WWF Tag Team Championship reign, they had further solidified their legacy, though their stint in the company was short-lived. By 1994, the Steiners had returned to WCW, where they once again became mainstays in the tag team division. However, things weren't the same. Scott had begun to transform, both physically and stylistically, into what would eventually become Big Papa Pump. His increasing muscle mass and growing ego led to an eventual split, with Scott embarking on a successful singles career, while Rick remained in the tag team scene. The Steiner brothers weren't just another great tag team, they were a force of nature. Their blend of legitimate amateur wrestling skill, raw power, and high-impact offense made them one of the most unique duos to ever grace the squared circle. Whether it was their domination in WCW, their brief but impactful run in the WWF, or their legendary matches in Japan, their influence on the industry is undeniable. Scott Steiner's eventual transformation into Big Papa Pump and Rick's continued work as a tag team and singles competitor meant that their legacy lived on even after they went their separate ways. But for fans of tag team wrestling, their work as a unit remains untouchable. The way they revolutionized the Steiner brothers as an influence, and their impact is visible in the suplex-heavy, hard-hitting styles of modern tag teams. And let's be honest, who doesn't love a good Frankensteiner? In a wrestling world filled with great tag teams, the Steiner brothers didn't just stand out, they suplexed their way into history. And if you ever find yourself doubting their greatness, just remember, in their prime, these two would probably have tossed you halfway across the ring before you even knew what hit you. In 2022, the Steiner brothers received one of the highest honors in professional wrestling, induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. This recognition cemented their legacy as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. Their contributions to the sport, from revolutionizing tag team wrestling to inspiring generations of wrestlers, were formally acknowledged in front of their peers and fans. The induction was especially meaningful as Rick's son, Braun Breaker, introduced them, symbolizing the continuation of their wrestling lineage. The honor not only celebrated their past achievements, but also ensured their name would be remembered for years to come. Well, that's all we've got time for today, and a big thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our future content. See you in the next video.